It's one thing I love about humans is we can change, right? There's some humans out there. There's some people, they'll make fun of you for trying to change. Like, what's wrong with you right now? Just, you don't need to change. Well, I like you the way you are, but we want to get better as humans and improve, and we can change, right?
We can. We are the most plastic animal to ever exist on the planet Earth, right? We have more plasticity, ability to change. That is a given. People can make up that if you say, I want to change, that there's something wrong with you now. There's nothing wrong with who we are now. I mean, I look back at all my past and I go, thank God that was all there, because that's what created who I was to date. But then we can look forward and say, I don't know, this is where I want to be in the future, so I can change. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong now.
Yeah.
There's no flaws. There's no nothing. Perfectly the way you are. But we are creators. We get to create who we are in the world.
Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we have Ron Macklin back. Welcome back.
Thanks, Matt. Glad to be here.
So Ron has been on our show before. And in fact, if you go back all the way to episode 132, which I think is around 9 months ago, you'll be able to learn all about his story in depth. Ron is a recovering engineer, as he likes to say. And
that's correct.
He's responsible for something called the 7-step Macklin Method and Macklin Connection. All that good stuff.
That's correct.
Yeah. I remember these things.
So thanks. Recovering engineer, one of my favorite things, because I was an engineer at one time. And I'm recovering from that. And it's continuing to recover from being an engineer.
That was like 30 years ago. How long does it take to recover from being an engineer?
I don't know. Do you ever really recover? It's just a process of going closer and closer to being recovered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey, and one of the reasons that I went into engineering in the first place, right, is because it had the least amount of English of any of the degrees that were offered at that time.
Makes sense.
So you can see I really had a love for writing and English and all that, and now we're going to talk about a book that I wrote.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, how did I get to this pot where I'd have a book?
Yeah, that's kind of
wild. When I first started to share what is the Macklin Method and share it in a way that somebody else could actually try to practice it and use it, the first time I went through it, the first person, a guy named Dan, who went through the program, he said, this was amazing. Like, you need to write a book. I panicked, right? Like, write a book? No,
no, don't say that.
Run away fast. Because I didn't like to write. It wasn't a space for me. It wasn't like enjoyable. And as I continued to progress down this journey, I had more and more people saying, do you have something I can give somebody? Like, wait, what do you mean give somebody? Do you have something I want to give something to somebody that would enable them to begin to understand what it is you do and what I've learned, right? Because I try to tell them and they have a hard time understanding it. I go, well, I have some short paragraphs. I have some write-ups, I have pages. And I go, no. Do you have a book? Oh, man, here you come again with that book thing, right? And finally, after 3.5, 4 years of people asking for a book to really, because they really were looking some way how they could share it with somebody else, I finally submitted to, okay, I need to write a book. And first one I wrote. This is the first one I wrote. It is not the book that everybody can buy now. First one I wrote sucked. It was terrible. It was all about me and all this stuff that I discovered. And it was, I would say it was more factual, but it was like still, it was boring to read.
Okay.
For me to read.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, I don't want to do that. And I remember reading the book, The Goal, right, which talks about critical path thinking and a theory of constraints. But it was a story. Like it was a real story, like it flowed, like there were characters, and you learned, but you didn't know you were learning, right? I go, I want to do that. Then there's Death by Meetings, and there's several other books out there that follow this kind of format. So I go, that's what I want to do. I want to create a book that people can read, and it's enjoyable to read, and you're learning, but you don't really know that you're learning. So then I started over, and had some great help. With people reading the book going, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it.
Really?
Oh, yep, nope, that's it. And you need a little more of this. And probably about a year into it, 8 months to a year into it, it began to come together in a storyline. So it's a 4-hour and 20-minute read, right? I recorded the Audible book as well, so you can listen to that. That came later. But I began to go, okay, I have a story. Now, what do I do with it? Like I got a story. Then now what? Like, how do you turn it into a book, and how do you do all that? So I had to learn all the details of, how to get an editor, to get a formatter, to get it to where it would go into Kindle version and into the Amazon print and the hardback. And then I had to come a cover. And the truth is, the cover was the hardest part of the book for me.
Right.
Because there were so many great ideas, and they didn't seem to work for me. Like it didn't come together for me. And finally, when I got the idea of just using 2 thought bubbles on the front, and the title was pretty straightforward for me. And the title is Everyone is Afraid. And the story of the book is, fundamentally, it's about 15 years after college. A group of people who were tight in college have drifted apart. Right. And so they were kind of a team way back then, right? Because they hung out, they got through college together, right? Mm-hmm. But they've drifted apart. They got families, they got all this other stuff going on, and they just drifted apart in a way that, like, they didn't really know what was going on with each other at all. And then there's one of them has a problem, like has a serious problem, and they start to reconnect, right? Well, it really comes down to what is it that was keeping them from reaching out to each other. And there was fear. They were afraid to find out what was going on with the other person, afraid to admit that they weren't where they thought they should be. They all these other stories that they had inside their head, right, that kept them from getting where they wanted to go. And I wanted it to be, I chose the book and the format where we created it, the way I created it was a space where it really, pulled you into the narrative. So that's what happens. I have some people who read it, they read it 2 or 3 times.
Really?
And they go, this is really a very good book. And it's like somebody's reached out to me and said, they were like on a 4th chapter, and he goes, are you going to make me cry in every chapter through this whole book? And I go, I'm not making you cry, by the way. I'm just creating a story. You're crying on your own, right? But it pulls us into the story, and that's what we wanted, because there's a way that we connect that requires a certain amount of vulnerability, a certain amount of openness, a certain amount of dealing with your own fears, or as I kind of call it, my own poo-poo, right? And as a way to get past that to where I can talk to somebody else about it, because once you do that, you bring them together. And so you have this group of people who are not connected in any way anymore, starting to pull themselves together, and they've got all kinds of reasons as to why they shouldn't do it. That's one of the things that people have asked me. So which one of these characters is you? And I go, dude, they're all me, right? I have felt every one of these characters' excuses at one time in my life. I've used excuses. I've done all that stuff. It is, all of that's me. And so the whole purpose of the book is the Macklin Method that I created for how to build a connection. It's all like what they call it, Easter eggs. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs throughout the whole book where you can begin to pick all that out. And you can see where they're discovering it, and they're using it in a way that enables somebody to understand what it is we do. And then we give a short description in the back of the book about what is the Macklin Method, so that you can discover that. And then once I had the book created, and I got the editing done and the covers done and all that, then there's the publishing of the book, right? So now it's a print on demand at Amazon. And so people buy it and they print it and send it to them. Or they use it on Kindle, or now I've recorded the audiobook, which was another whole fun journey to use to reading your book. And it's like one of the challenges is you can't ad lib. You got to read the book with the emotion, and you can't ad lib because people read the book with their eyes and their ears at the same time. So you have to make the words match perfectly and have the intonation and all the other stuff to go with that. It was a lot of fun. I have people ask, are you going to do another one? I'm not committing to anything like that yet.
No. We'll let this one percolate for a while. We'll just let it.
We'll let it percolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So the story, going back to the story itself. So we're not going to give away the story. I don't want to do that.
Thanks.
But I'm curious though, what you said there was this like 15-year gap. Why that 15-year gap? Why? And I was curious if it was something based on your own life that this is coming from.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we pull from our own stories, right? Yeah. But I had a very close friend, who we had drifted apart. Mm-hmm. One time we were like you didn't go anywhere without each other, right? And it was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And somebody sent me a note and said, "Hey, did you see that this guy died?" I went, "What?" Right? I had no idea he was sick or anything, and we're not that old, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, so there are people that have been in my life that have been, like triggered me to think about all of these things in the book and how I wrote it. Now the methodology itself I created just so I could take care of my family and take care of myself as I age. I needed to have connections that were real and connections that had deep trust. And that's why I created that. But yeah, in the book, that's why one part of my inspiration for that.
You made the connection.
Yeah, made the connection.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess we should give a little background, like how to, a little bit of a recap of what the Macklin Method is. Like, what does that have to do with? And then how does that like align with the book, and how is that baked in?
Yeah. So the Macklin Method, step 1, right? And there's 7 steps, is to be your stand, to know what you will do, won't do, might do. Right? Like, and it's not like it's fixed. Like a 30-year-old stand is not like a 60-year-old stand is not 2 30-year-old stands, right? Like it changes over time. It doesn't continue to whatever it was when you were 7 or 9 or 10 or 30 or 45. It doesn't stay the same. We have different stands in life as we go. We create them.
But sometimes it's like thundering outside. Hopefully no one's hearing this. I've never had it. I've never done a podcast when it's like lightning and thundering out. Awesome. Let's see how this directional mic works. Cool. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Yeah.
Stan.
So where was I now?
Sorry.
Before we got distracted by the thunder.
You were talking about stand.
Stand, yeah. So the stand, so as you age, you change, right? Well, the problem is if you don't go and look at your stand, you could have decided something was a certain way when you were 10 years of age and still be living with that stand. Mm. Right? Like I'm not outgoing. I do not talk to this person. All these things that we make up, we go, I'm not good at this. And then we move in life like that's the way it really is. And if we don't go back and assess it, like our stand will be of a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 14-year-old.
Your stand, as in
stand,
yeah.
What you will.
I thought you were saying stand.
What
at
you
first.
won't do.
I'm like, who's Stan?
Not stand. Stand. What you will do, what you won't do, what you might do.
So this is kind of the stories you tell yourself throughout your life.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you make decisions. Like this is the way this is, right? And I will do this. I won't do that. I might do this.
Gotcha.
And then the next part is be an offer of help. We call it tossing lines. It comes from a metaphor from a horse trainer, but it's be an offer of help, which means to speak something in a way that brings forth the threats of the marketplace, and be an offer of help in a way that people can discover things, which is different than telling them, watch out for this, right? That's different. Be an offer of help means, have you thought about this, or what would this look like, or how would this show up for you? And that's making it as a way for people to discover stuff. right? And then the next step is wait until they come to you. We call it the imaginal moment, which is a way that our brains go, oops, something's different. Like, can you create a new story? That's a new creation for us. And you wait for, when you're asking those questions, you don't ever chase them down, right? What you're doing is you're letting them come to you. And they go, you said this the other day. I've been thinking about that. Like, they're coming to you. Okay. So you want to build connection, right? Be your stand, right? Be an offer of help. Wait for them to come to you, right? That's 1, 2, 3. Number 4 is to be a simple offer of help at that moment, like a place to connect. Like, yeah, I'd be glad to talk to you about that. I'd be glad to show you where I got that, right? And then the next one is like be an open, like a space opening for people to connect with you in other groups, like a study group, a book group, or your business or something, to where now we're into step 4 and 5, right? And that is allow them to come into your life, right? To be a part of that. And you be into theirs. They may invite you into something for you. Mm-hmm. Number 6, which is the tough, Number 6 can be the toughest, but it's to let them buck. And we use that like sometimes when you learn something new, you kind of fight it, right? You kind of go, I don't know if that's real or not. I'm not sure. I don't know. Just let them buck. Let them fight you, right? But don't get in the middle of it. Just let it be. Let them work through whatever stories they have in their heads and let it happen. Because if you try to get in the middle of that, right, then they're going to see you as a threat.
So they got to work through it themselves.
Just let them work through it. Yeah. Let them work through it themselves. And a lot of times that looks a lot like this.
For those on audio, we're just staring at each other right now.
Yeah. They're not saying anything. They're not doing anything, but they are thinking in their heads. Is that real? Is that really that way? Oh my gosh, I've been screwing up before. I did this wrong. I did this thing. Let them go through it, right? Just be there with them. And the last one, which can be the most difficult for many people, including myself, is to allow somebody to contribute to you. So you've just done some things to help somebody. Discover some new knowledge, some new connection, some new space in the world, something else out there, right? And then they want to contribute back. And you have to allow them to contribute to you how they want to contribute to you. And these steps worked through in this process will build a connection of trust. And I don't mean like, oh yeah, I know, man, he's a good guy. Sure. Yeah, fine. No, it's like the phone rings and you go, oh, I wonder if I can help Matt. Like, right. Because you're like, I want to be on this phone with Matt. That's the kind of trust you want to build. That's the kind of trust we talk about in the book. As like people get to where they crave like talking to the other person, seeing what they can learn to contribute to the other person, to learn from the other person. And now you just look forward to that space. And that's a connection that's deeper than just, yeah, we hung out together for a little bit. It was cool, right? No, this is a real connection.
Real connection.
And so that's what we find, that's why I created in the book was as each one of these characters go through that and each one of them fights it and each one of them goes through and connects to it. And then each one of them, even though some of them at the very end, they finally come around, they actually start to pull together with, and that's what we need. I mean, what is the longest running study on happiness done by Harvard, right? And it says the number one thing that creates happiness is connection. And they've been doing this for 100 and some odd years, right? And they've got Nobel laureates, they've got presidents, they've got, billionaires, all this other wealth and everything else. And when it comes down to what it really matters to produce happiness in life is connections. And so the purpose of the book is for you to discover the method that we created as a way for you to do it in your life. And we've had some folks who've read the book and said, I can see what I was doing wrong, right? I want to change how I'm going to connect with other people. Some people want to go in, hang out on our website. It's a Mighty Networks website. Some people want to come in there and read more articles. Some people just read the book. Some people join our programs. Bottom line is it's knowable. Like you can figure out how to have those connections, deep, lasting connections. And in our world where I can see, we're not as connected as we used to be. And they go, oh no, I got my iPhone and I'm connected to hundreds of people. You're not connected like what you used to be. Because you used to be able to sit down and talk with each other. And people's lives, I look at my grandparents, their lives were dependent on the connections they made.
Right.
They had to have those connections to survive. They were deep connections. Vividly remember sitting on the combine, my grandpa was a farmer, sitting on the combine cutting, I think we were cutting wheat. And I looked over and I saw somebody come in with a combine and start to cut the wheat. And I was going, Grandpa, somebody's stealing the wheat over there. And he looks over and he goes, Ron, that's my brother. He's done cutting, so he's going to come over and cut ours. Like, didn't even ask. There was no such thing as a cell phone.
Yeah,
right. Or nothing, walkie-talkie, none of that, People just knew to look out for each other because of the trust between the two of them. They were just looking out to help each other. And that's where happiness comes from. That's what a good life is.
Yeah. Yeah, today we are, I don't know if I look at my life and there's a lot of people that are in my life, but I don't feel connected to them, or they just show up when they need something. My wife and I talk about that a lot. Those people.
Right.
I don't know who those people are, but they're out there.
No names.
But,
no names.
It's interesting, and this doesn't have to be an in-person thing, though. Like, I feel like even though
no. It's not.
We're very much connected with our devices and stuff like that, but even Zoom and stuff like that. I think about like people I've met in real life, but most of our communication happens because maybe we're geographically not in the same place, but we jump on a call. And I just had this. I was thinking of one particular, very recent call I had on Friday, I think, a couple days ago. And it was a friend that, suddenly just shot me a message, say, hey, Matt, let's jump on a call. Let's catch up. Let's see what's going on, how your family's doing, what's happening. And that's all it was. There was no real agenda. He's just letting me know what he's doing with his life, and same vice versa, what we can do for each other. And he's starting a podcast. Maybe I'll be on his podcast. He's just catching up like good friends. But that, I feel a deep connection with that person because we've been through a lot, but there's something more there. It's just not what do you need from, what can you do for me or whatever.
It's not a transaction.
Not a transaction.
It's not a transaction. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a connection. And
supporting
that's where we
each
find
other.
our happiness. Yeah, absolutely. And that is the space for us to have a good life, like happiness and peace in our lives, because we have people we can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have somebody to talk to, like we really share our thoughts, share our vulnerability, share our ups, our downs, and in that space, we don't do well. What is the most what is the most intense punishment they've ever created? Solitary confinement. You take the people away from other people, and it's the worst punishment known to man.
Yeah,
we don't do well. We suffer.
We need each other
greatly.
Yeah, for sure.
We do, and we need each other, and we need those deep connection relationships, so we can actually live a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I wrote the book. That's why I created Macklin Connection, as I had to figure out how to do that because I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing it, and I didn't create Macklin Connection and the methodology so that someday I would write a book because I didn't want to write a book, or create a business because I didn't have that story in my life. I did it because I needed to figure out how to build a relationship with other people, and I could see my life was not working out when I couldn't do it. I was alone.
Yeah,
even though I had a spouse, right? But not at work.
Yeah, but I love relationships. That when somebody creates something out of some of their own suffering or their own problems in life, and you figure out the solution. Maybe you figured it out, or you needed to figure something out for yourself, and now you're sharing it with the world, which is amazing.
Well, thanks, Matt. I actually figured it out and how to do it because I needed to.
Yeah.
Like I needed to take care of myself, my family, and I wanted to build teams out there in the world that could, do things powerfully and get accolades or and accomplishments. And when people would come up and ask me, like, well, how'd you do that? I would just tell them, like, how I did it. And I remember vividly people go like, oh, so you're not going to tell me. I go, I just did tell you. And it took me a long time to come to the realization that they were expecting me to say, I just told everybody what to do, and they did it. And what I was saying was not that, and they couldn't hear it.
Mm.
They thought I was giving them, you call it mumbo jumbo BS to distract like people away from what was really happening.
Right.
And I was really doing that. I've suffered for a long time trying to tell people how this would work, and I just couldn't be successful at it.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually had somebody ask me to come speak at a conference where I would tell people how I built these connections and groups and teams right. And when I got to the end, people said, well, could you teach me how to do that? And I was going like, somebody really wants to learn it? Wow, this is cool, right? And that was the beginning of the business. When they came up to me and asked how to do it, and then I put together a program to do that.
And who did you build the program for? Can this be applied to just your life or business or your business?
Yes, but I didn't build it for that. I built it for fundamentally for professionals. When I say professionals, anybody who works, right? Mm-hmm. So it could be for engineers, marketers, executives, professionals, laborers, anybody who works in the world, right? That's who I built it for. And at work, to and from other people at work and vendors and relationships with contractors and everything, right? Customers, right? That's what I built it for. And it was the same guy who said, first guy I went through, and he came out and said, well, I didn't build any new relationships at work, but I got a new relationship with my son. And then he said, you need to write a book. And I went like, used it with your son? And it's one of the things that has continually shocked myself and others as how people use what we share with them, what they learn, right?
Yeah.
They use it with their family. And it's very unusual if you don't have somebody going through the program coming out of the call, like emotionally tearing up because they have a relationship with their, and I can go through the list, their child, their spouse, their parent, their sister, themselves. One of my favorites is themselves. They came back with a new relationship with themselves. And it's a space where you can connect to yourself or connect to other people that you thought was impossible.
That must have been an amazing feeling to, you do this thing, you think you kind of got the segment of people that, or how people might apply this. And then suddenly you realize, oh, this is actually helping in other parts of their lives with their other relationships beyond what I even envisioned.
We've never, like, we don't market it that way.
Yeah.
Like that's not our, where we say this is our market, right? But it is very common for the people who go through the program to do that, to use it with their spouses, their kids, their parents. The parent one is always the one that got me. Like it just throws me a bit. We've had people in tears, like talking about how they have a relationship with their mother or their father now that they've never had before, and they've wanted their whole life, and they're in their 50s.
Wow.
Right? And I'm going like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
That's amazing.
But it's fundamental to being a human.
Yeah.
So it will work with any two humans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny as the people come in and go, that person I thought was a real a-hole, right? Like I did not like them in any way. They're actually a pretty good person. I actually I'm kind of like them. Right?
Right.
Not that they like them. I am like that person. There's so much things we have in common because we're all human.
You somehow reframe that in their minds, and they're now having holding
they
perspective.
get a chance to be vulnerable with each other, and they realize that they're actually very much alike.
Yeah. Wow.
So it makes a lot of fun, interesting, but it's also very rewarding.
Yeah.
I mean, you get people who open up, and when businesses do this, we've had businesses with I think the biggest is around 350 people, and they're about 35% done.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to work through everybody in the business over a period of a couple of years, to listen to them talk to each other, the connections they have, the openness they have. Like nobody is yelling at each other anymore.
Wow.
They're going like, "Did you mean to throw that rock at me?" And that's what I made it up to be. And there's this openness in their conversation that is just so different. And what it enables them to do is really focus on the business, because all that personal internal dialogue goes away.
Yeah.
And now it's just being in the business with each other.
That sounds very transformative. Because you probably don't realize, like I do, I guess it depends on the business, whatever, but that group of people, but you probably, all this baggage, if there's drama and there's just bad feelings and all this stuff, that's what you're healing that. And so they can get back to focusing on what they should be focusing on.
Well, it's all those stories we have in our heads, right? That we make up without even knowing that we're making them up. That there's some reason why we don't like somebody, or they're not good enough, or they don't like us. And in reality, nothing. But if you think somebody doesn't like you, you'll turn around and not like them in return. And then they will turn around and go, "I'm going to try to avoid you." And then you go, "I'm going to avoid that person."
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like there's no longer can they work in the same building together.
Yeah.
And in reality, they're just one simple little mistake and stuff. And if you open up the space for them to connect with each other, all of a sudden anybody can connect. Then creativity can go through the roof, because now you're open to creating and adding on, instead of going like, "Well, that's my idea." And they go, no, here's an idea. Let me add on to it. Oh, wait, no, I'll add on to that. And then we create something new, and the creativity just takes off. And we've seen that over and over again.
Fantastic.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. So what is the one thing that people struggle with the most? Like if they feel either in their business or in their life, they want to have deeper connections. What is the big stumbling block? Like when you were there, like you were in that dark place, you felt like you didn't have connections. Like what was that? What was the first door you kind of broke through, or window, or whatever?
Several,
Wall.
right? Wall. Knowing what your stand is.
That's
right, because if your stand is there are people in the world that are bad, right? You will find them. Right? You'll create them in your head, and then they will be bad to you. But if you have a stand in the world that people are good and they're trying to do the best they can, you will find that too. Same people. Right? So the most fundamental first step is that, right? The one that has probably myself and others have bumped into is like, "Ooh, I don't know if I can do that." It's allowing others to contribute to you in a way that the others want to contribute, right? And hey, can I help you with that? I got it, man. We're good, right? Somebody is wanting to help you, and you just said no.
So you let somebody.
It doesn't matter what your internal dialogue is. You don't know matter what your internal dialogue is. Like, "Oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't." No. Their story is now, "Oh, I'm not good enough for you. You don't want my help."
Is part of this, like, you always hear, like when you give something to somebody, you give them a gift, and you feel that giving makes you feel really, really good. So you're allowing somebody else to give something to you, so that person feels good. Is that it?
Well, it's not that they feel good. They feel connected, which creates happiness. So they feel good because they're connected to somebody. They got to help somebody.
Right.
And giving somebody like, "Oh, here's $100, nothing. Letting them help and contribute to your life, that's a whole nother space. That's a gift of themselves to you, and you accept it willingly and openly. And sometimes, like, they may not help us like exactly how you thought it would, like exactly how you thought they were going to help you. But many times they do it better. And then you go, ooh, didn't see that one coming. Right? And if you don't open yourself up for that, whatever you can imagine is your limitation. But if you open up where they can come in, whatever you imagine, they can beat that. They can be better in the space. And then you bring something new in that you're able to create something different and even better yet. So, like, it's a hard one because you got to deal with your own insecurities. Like, ooh, like there could be a story like, what if they do it better than me? Yay, right? No. But there's also that insecurity, like, ooh, I won't look as good.
Right.
So it's a vulnerable spot. So the first one and the last one, what is your stand?
So what? Go back go back to the stand once for a second. So how do you remap your brain to have a different stand? Like, what does that process look like? So fundamentally, and it's one of my favorite quotes from. It's the only quote I really know from Mike Tyson, the boxer, right? He goes, "Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth." Right. I think he said it with a little higher pitched voice than mine. Yeah. I think it's more like, everybody's got a plan, right? And that's what fundamentally is, if you want to know what your stand is, wait till you get punched in the mouth and see what you do. That's your stand. So it's easy to say, this is my stand, write down all this wonderful stuff, and it's all really great, and everybody's happy and all that stuff. Then you get punched in the mouth, and you go, ooh, I just wanted to run away. That's my stand. That's my stand. Oh, I fought back. That's my stand. Right? And then you can say, and you can do this, you can say, how can my stand be so terrible? Or you can say, aha, I found it. I need to fix that, right?
I know, now that I know what it is, I can craft it. And then you just got to practice, right? How do you learn any new skill? Practice, practice, practice. If you want to get in less practicing, turn it into a game. Anytime you're playing, the amount of time it takes to learn a new skill goes way down. So make it a game, make it fun, and that's how you do that. And if you have two people and you can turn it into a game together, you'll learn it even quicker. So now practice your stand. Like mine is 34 steps, 34 different things. Now I started out with 7, and it's probably been as high as 40.
Wow.
Right? But there's sometimes when I go, nope, that's not it. And this is it. And so I keep changing it. Like it's continuing to move around. There are things you just don't know about. Right? And so now I look at my stand and I know what's all up there because everything up there I've practiced enough to where I can say, yep, it's part of my stand now. So if we don't know what it is, just wait and see how you react in life. That is your stand.
It's one thing I love about humans is we can change, right? There's some humans out there. There's some people, they'll make fun of you for trying to change. Like, what's wrong with you right now? Just, you don't need to change. Well, I like you the way you are, but we want to get better as humans and improve, and we can change, right?
We can. We are the most plastic animal to ever exist on the planet Earth, right? We have more plasticity, ability to change. That is a given. People can make up that if you say, I want to change, that there's something wrong with you now. There's nothing wrong with who we are now. I mean, I look back at all my past and I go, thank God that was all there because that's what created who I was to date. But then we can look forward and say, I don't know this is where I want to be in the future, so I can change. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong now.
Yeah.
There's no flaws. There's no nothing. Perfectly the way you are. But we are creators. We get to create who we are in the world. And therefore, we can create a new stand, a new space, new offer, new everything. Yeah. That's how all this stuff gets invented. I mean, I always imagine what it was like for the people who actually went to the moon. Right? Because, I mean, look how long people would go, see that thing up there? Wouldn't it be cool to go there? And then we went there. And would we make it like 4 years and we got bored? Right? Like we did that, right? Let's come back here and, now we're getting ready to maybe go on someplace else. but we created everything about to go there. We created it.
Yeah. And then anyway, we didn't know what to do after we got there.
After we got there, we go, well, now what, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yep. So, yeah, we are creators and we can create anything in the future, but there's nothing wrong now.
I don't know. I just, maybe it's in your personal life and stuff. You just see some people, it's like, they've always been that person. And you got to wonder what they think about you always trying to, you have all those motivational quotes you put on Facebook and it's like just be who you are. I think about it from reading too. Like I read all the time, listen to audiobooks. Mm-hmm. I'm always trying to expand my mind and become better. But at the same time, like I will sometimes be like, is there going to be a point where I could just be like done? I'm like, I'm good now. I'm good. Now I can live my life. I've arrived. My knowledge is what it is now. I don't know. I don't think I could be that. I think I'm always hungry for knowledge though. So
I have become friends with a gentleman named Monty Roberts, and he is, you may be able to find the movie out there called The Cowboy and the Queen. So he's the horse trainer that connected up with the Queen, and they've been friends for 30 years.
I think
25 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And I've become friends with him, and he's 89, and he's still curious, and he's still learning.
Fantastic.
And in fact, I was with him probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, and he just go like, "Oh my God, this is like you can see he's still discovering and learning and all that." And I'm going like, I think that once we stop learning and stop creating who we are, we really start dying.
You gave up. Yeah.
You kind of give up, right? And it's not that you give up like it's a bad thing. It's just you chose. This is it. You're done. And I'm going at 89 years of age, which I was really excited about because I'm 59. So I go, ooh, 30 more years, right? Of learning and discovering and creating and trying and in that space. And I'm going like, yeah, why would I want to stop?
Yeah.
I love doing it.
That's incredible. Yeah, I have some older friends. They're super old, even in the 70s or whatever. That always inspires me. Because I see what they're doing, especially if they're very motivated and they're still learning and they're still out there doing, even on the social webs, they're out there doing stuff. It's like, yeah. I mean, I'm 53, so I think about, that's 20, 25 years from now, I could still be doing stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. My dad has a term that he uses, and it's called antique. And he goes, some people become antique quite young. And some people never become antique. And for me, the way he described it is like antique means the value is in the memory of the past. There's no value in today. Like you're not going to use a hand wringer washing machine today. Like you're going to get a modern washing machine and wash, right? There's no value in what it was originally created for. It was only for the memory of going backwards. Which means people can become an antique and still be alive. And you can be an antique for 50 years. Never changing, never learning, always looking backwards in that space. And when he told me the story about that and the example of what he gave was, I get it. Like the mechanics are there. Like I want to keep learning and growing and doing what I was doing. Because I don't want to be an antique. Yeah. I want to be somebody who's always creating.
Always renewing. Yeah.
Always renewing.
Yeah.
The purpose and the value of what you do. Yeah. It's a now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Ron, I actually had this idea. I was like, I want to actually have you back sometime to talk about actually dig into the actual process of writing that book, because I hope that someday I will write a book. I don't know what it'll be, but I feel like I have one in me at least before I die, maybe by the time I'm 80 or 90. But I would love to. I would love to actually have you on just to talk about that. I was thinking about adding it today, but I'm like, nah. This is such a great conversation. I wanted to keep going.
I'd love to. Anytime podcast or no podcast, always just reach out.
Fantastic.
And we can do something and help you with what I learned, because I learned an awful lot about myself, but also like how to go about producing a book.
Yeah. So obviously, people can go find your book everywhere. Amazon?
Yes.
Audiobook?
Amazon's the best place to go get it.
Right.
Yeah. And you can get the Kindle version, paperback, hardback, and you can get the Audible book, which is read by me.
Love it.
So if you like my voice now,
I love
on the podcast, you can listen to my book in my voice.
I could listen to your voice all day, Ron. I'm going to get that audiobook. I'm just
well, enjoy it and shoot me a note when you get done with it. I'd love to hear what you made up, what you learned.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you elsewhere, you got the website, you got you're on LinkedIn.
The Imaginal Community is our website, which is a place to go to learn more about what we're doing. You can always get us on macklinconnection.com too, right? We have two websites. One is where we do our learning, and one is just like where people find out about us. And you can always reach out to me at ron@macklinconnection.com.
Boom. All right. Well, thanks again, Ron. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing your stories.
Matt,
you're very inspiring.
Matt, thank you for having me back on. And I acknowledge you for all the things that you do to help other people in the world. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Ron. Till next time. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you are interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.